Okay, Johan. Stikat Johan gunnachtí hatí ade ach tú yag éich sitini. Ya yagía céjin yagí. Hín tánach kayani disiú duasag ya dis jinkat yawachi. Hi everybody, thank you for coming. It's good to see you all. Today's Friday, March 10th, and for class today, I left an announcement from yesterday. We'll have an introduction to our dialects series. Our guest today is Gwinnett Marcia Hotch, and she's going to share with us a little bit about the Haines and Chilkat areas, the way that you hear Tlingit there, and then we have some recordings to share so that we can continue to bring representation of the different ways of speaking Tlingit in different areas and communities. So our guest speaker today, Deika Reinach Marsha Hachu Duasauk, Tlingit Reinach Gunel Te Uduasauk, Ganach Te Dinach City, Shangake Dia Dioa, Jirkat Kwan. Tuck on that. So in English, her name is Marsha Hotch. In Tlingit, her name is Gwinnett. So everybody go ahead and unmute your mics and repeat after me. Her name, Gwinnett.
Okay.
And she is Ganach Shangukedi Yedi, Jilkat Kwan, and she lives in Kwakwan. And so I will hand it over to you, Gwinnett, to let you share with our students.
Yik echat the cut Yuhan Yuxatini Yayagi Ya Zoom to Nak. Kudzi ya Yai that we chatlak ya wasa do a kesh wasa kuwasa do a sauku at our Lingit Class. Little side to Haji Shakde ya internet. Ye do a sauku at Ada tuhuatan yadsutan ach kla ach ish ach kli ka ach kli sha yai dat yai yagau play wasa hastatundatani ye gukwati ya yagi has outsitini ade wushtin atutla atki ya zoom tunach katsu where Facebook, Instagram, ja dat hasati had the trunk in where social media you do some good. Just wait that away has on sick ishanu han. Guelph ya Zoom to nach 2018 agawe ya Zoom to nach gune ka I Kwashli tu ya singe ir atangi. Good yede yeti. Good yede wuti ach yejine ya singe. Kuat tu yeah well. Ya that Anchorage ye khat yeti. Escort aya ye khat yeti too. Um, how do I talk about dialect? I actually never knew there was a dialect until I went to Juneau and was exposed in early 20s, 2020, 1998 is probably when I started, and I began getting with other speakers. At that time, we used to have a room full of speakers, and See Alaska would bring us in together, and Shirley was one of those ones that joined us, and it was an awesome time. And I think for me, being a younger speaker, I held more back. I, and the fact that I was told I was saying things wrong made me feel like I was. And but as I got into teaching, I took the things that See Alaska presented to us, teaching methods. And that was very helpful to me as a person, an individual that wanted to learn how to be successful at teaching. It's not an easy thing. And I think becoming aware of dialects was when I began to realize as I was teaching, oh, and my mentor, Joe Hotch, made it very clear that we needed to respect each area's dialect because that's the way those ancestors, and when somebody learns from somebody, we're respecting not just that individual, but where that individual learned it. So their elders and their elders, because that's something that's passed through the generations. So I encourage everybody to be respectful of the dialects. And because I sure don't want, I want the dialects to continue because it's important. It's just like, to me, somebody in New York or England, for that matter, or the UK, what modern day, what they call it, they have a different intonation of English, but we still understand them, right?
Right.
They have different ways of, sounds like they speak more from the front of their mouth, you know, and it's just different, but we still understand each other. So, and it's the same with somebody in New York versus somebody in Tennessee or Texas and Alaska. So we still communicate and it's still understandable. And I know in the Chilkat, I've grew up hearing elders call, whereas in Juneau and on down, for sick, you need. But I grew up with, just to let you know, Tom Jimmy was in his old man Tom Jimmy. Some of you guys may know the younger ones. There's two younger ones. There's Tom Jimmy, old man Tom Jimmy. His brother was Joseph Jimmy, and Joseph Jimmy named his son Tommy Jimmy, and then Tommy Jimmy Jr. That's where that name comes from. So I just want to make that connection. I grew up with the old man, Tom Jimmy, as my grandpa because he married my great grandma. So, and they were born in the 1800s. So that's what I was exposed to. And my mom and my dad, they took me in. She was my great aunt. She's my family. And in Tlingit, there's no orphans. So they took me in and raised me. So they were born in 1904 and 1906. So that's what I grew up with. Achawe ya Tlingit yuk atangi. Heski din koshiguk jaan kuha'a. Katsu ka'it katletu. Hesh ach tuawishku kutwuhi ha yuk atangi. Ka Hesh ach tuawishku hadachkank ian ishandain haswuti. Yeah, wow. So for the Chilkat, I explained it. Back in the early 1900s, there was a group of Kagwantan women that came from Sitka, and they called them the Five Brides. The Kagwantan brides came in to Klukwan, and they came with the dialect that was that they grew up with, and I saw it where one of the Kagwantan women raised her grandchild, and that dialect I was exposed to in Tlakwan, and this individual used to get told, "You're saying it wrong," and an elder, she shrunk back. And when I started teaching, she says, "I always get told I say it wrong, but I learned from my grandma." And I began to realize that this grandma was one of those families that were brought to Klukwan through that Five Brides for the Ganachtedi. And yes, some of her vowels were different, and that's pretty much what it was. And I think when in my teaching, I'm the in-between person to new learners, and I also help the elders in my community when I started teaching, and we got to talk about dialects. And I think one of the things the Huna ladies and the Angun ladies were very adamant that I said, "Yuck ye, yuck ye." And I'm like, oh my goodness. But I grew up saying it yuggy. But some people say yuck ye. And that's okay, because that's the way they learned it. And so in my teachings, I try to insert the dialects if I can, if I know. And for us, but I hear both. For sick, Yanik is Juno on down, and Yanuk is up in the Chilkat areas, is what I heard. And for mountain goat, other people call it Jinwu. And I grew up all my life hearing it Jannu. Jannu for mountain goat. And what else? Gosh, I can't think of anything. I had some in my mind, but I didn't write them down. um, Nancy?
Moose awa?
Oh, um, the elders in the Chilcat that I grew up with called it tsisk moose. Tsisk with the TS, because to them, zisk, the DZI, is an owl. And if you think about the history of and the migration of the first moose that came over on the Chilcat Range side of the mountains, came through those mountain corridors, was in the 50s. And so there was no moose on the coast. And so they were first exposed to the moose. And I clearly remember my mom and them and the elders getting excited when they saw moose. It was time to go get moose. And then in the 60s, the Fish and Game had put what you call a regulation on it, because it's just coming down. And to them, maybe, I don't know how long Fish and Game was in there, but the elders, they're going to go get food when they need it, because no refrigeration. They're going to do what they need to do. And that's what my dad and another gentleman, a relative, did. They got a moose in the winter. And they would hang it in the smokehouse and just slice off as they needed in cold weather. So that's what helped them to make it through those long winters, being able to have access to their food. But when they made the regulation, brings back memories. I was still a kid, but we were eating. Mom had cooked the moose and with potatoes that my dad used to grow. And all of a sudden there was a knock at the door during dinner, and these guys in uniforms with pistols at their side come into the house, and they handcuffed my dad and took him away. So my dad made the news. He was one of the first ones to break their regulations. But to my dad's law, he did what he did. I mean, that's what they do. So Shirley, do you have?
Yeah, my mom was Chilcat from Haynes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm familiar with Haynes. We went there a lot, but not too much in Klukwan. I think we went there twice that I remember. So about Haynes, were there any tribal houses in Haynes?
Yes, there was a lot. My growing up, all those gosh, if I'd have known this question was, you can actually find old pictures. Blankenship, the photographer Blankenship, has had some wonderful pictures of those houses that were put up on the front street of Haynes, where Raven House is. There used to be more houses, and even in my lifetime, I actually used to go to the house that was Lukach Eddie, David Katzig's grandpa. My mom used to work at the cannery, and so I grew up with the Katzigs. And we used to spend time at that tribal house, but there used to be more tribal houses. They were abandoned, unfortunately. And there were no windows on some of them. You know, they're going to be old windows, and people want those kinds of glass, you know, they'll take it. So I don't think it was the people that took the windows off. But when I look back on it today, and yeah, there was a lot of houses there. I don't know which clan houses. I do know the Raven House was there, but that was put together from different houses that was over at Yundastucky. Yundustuck, yeah. That's where Yundastucky comes from. Yundus. Nancy, what's do?
You. Third person?
Yep. Yundus with the S on it.
Who is a person, him or her? It applies to both.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, well, and
And what was the word again?
Yundustuck. Yeah, that's where they started polling with the canoes, because it's the alluvial, the estuary,
Mm,
and where the river meets the ocean, and it's starting to be more silty, and it's not as deep, and so it was easier to pull in the river.
mm.
So when you're pulling, stuck, Adu stucky, yeah. That's where Yundu stuck. Adu stucky, yeah. That's polling. So look up polling. I don't know if it'll be in there, but it's where they use, and I grew up with it. You getting around on the river with long poles. You can actually anchor yourself off of the beach with it, and they didn't have motors. They learned how to get around with the canoe, and we actually have quicksand in the Chilkat River because it's a braided river. So so there's places where, and it, because it's braided, it changes almost on a daily or a weekly basis. So you have to have this long pole, you got to have your oars, and you get up so far, all of a sudden you could hit a sandbar. So you have to pull yourself over, or some shallow places.
Yeah. Stuck is confusing. I think duck is the word for polling.
Mm-hmm. Adustaki, yeah, you're right. I slapped the S on the T.
I know it's harder to do without because the do is you have to attach the S to the U.
Mm-hmm.
Do stuck, yeah. Do stuck. If you want to take the words apart, that's what it ends up to be.
Yeah, we're gonna cheese. But it's been Englishnized to Yundastucky.
Yeah. Yeah. To add their own letters.
Yep.
And a lot of times it works. How about the Eagle houses? Because I'm Kagwantan, I'm curious about that.
Which Kagwantan house you come from?
Bell House.
Gao Hit. The Gao Hit was in Tlakwan, and it has collapsed probably over 15 years.
Oh,
Yeah, I remember they had a potlatch in there. I was just a little girl, and that was one of the biggest, longest potlatches I think we had in Tlakwan. And they actually, you know how they roast animals on a pit or whatever they call them? They did a bear, black bear, on a pit. Who cooked it? I remember seeing that.
hmm.
I know where it was. That's all I can say.
I've been to Klakwan a couple of times, but nothing came through to me. My children are all have names from that Chilkat area.
Drum House. Gao Hit.
Yeah. Um,
Ah.
my brother always said we were from the Bell House in Haynes.
Oh, in Haynes. That's those Kagwantan houses, I think they're gone. I remember old houses. You know who seemed to remember some of those houses was Leona Santiago.
Hmm.
And I think we can get an old picture and kind of look at where those houses were. I remember seeing them, but I really didn't know the names of them.
My brother said that the house, the Kagwantan house, was just a regular building, and somebody found a bell buried in the ground, so they took it and hung it on the porch outside.
Oh,
How
oh,
that got named Bell House.
oh.
And he said he one time saw a photograph of the building with the bell hanging on. But I've never been able to locate it.
Okay. I will ask around.
Yeah.
May I comment?
Yes.
Um, I just want to say, Ganesh Chish, thank you for coming to speak with us and share. And I just wanted to tell you how much it means to me that you said in Lingit, there's no orphans. I just think that's such a beautiful way of describing our cultures. And also, I love that you said that, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I heard you say that um, we honor the teachers who are teaching the other younger generations when we honor the dialects.
Yep.
Okay, goodness cheese.
We're honoring the elders,
Honoring the elders.
their
Yes.
elders, and their elders, and their elders.
Yes. And I'm not familiar with a braided river. Could you explain what you mean when you say that Chilkat is a braided river?
It's it's a wide valley, and the river is glacial melt. It originates from glacial melt. So depending on how fast snow, or because it's so mountainous, the water will rise. And when it rises, it's very silty. And so if there's a jam, a log jam, that silt will pile up. And so it's going to change the river. So the river will crisscross, and just pretty soon you got a bunch of them going.
Ganesh cheese.
Is that where the eagles congregate?
Yes. Well, past few years, it it was so weird during COVID. We hardly had any eagles here. I was like, gosh, do they know something too?
Yeah.
But what's happened was, I think one of the major rivers in British Columbia down south ended up with a lot of fish in it, and the eagles started changing where they went for the fish feed.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, we used to get a lot, but even our fish is kind of dwindling down. And so I think that's causing change. So
Pretty sad story.
yeah. Yeah. Mm.
And I think it kind of tells about how we used to honor and take care of everything.
Yeah.
Maybe that part isn't happening, or if we lost something along the way.
It's I think with the way fishing is approached, I don't know, either now everything gets regulated in legislation, you know.
I
And
remember the big battle that you guys had for that river.
yeah,
Where you put what was it? To keep the fish from going up the river.
the fish weirs.
Yeah, weirs.
Yeah, that changes. I think that even changes the structure of the fish, because it
Yeah.
keeps them on one side way too long than they were originally used to, generation after generation of coming, and it weakens each time.
Yeah, because the salmon that's spawned there goes back with the pattern, and if you keep the fish from going there,
Mm-hmm.
that's why there was such a big battle. I just really sympathized with them.
Mm-hmm. Gutiede yanani noe ha hini where we ate hini ade has astehia katsu ade has askeuya achawe gutiede yanatin ya ha nadai hin.
Yeah,
We never had seiners.
yeah.
Never.
Yeah, the regulation it's something that my brother was totally against, because the Tlingits and the Haidas, or those in the southeast, really knew the patterns. It nothing is according to the white man's clocks. They set a time. They say, okay, they're supposed to arrive on the 16th, and they put a date on it, and they come when they're ready. Or they come earlier or they come later.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was the regulations they claim is trying to protect the fish runs, but I think they do the opposite.
Oh, yeah, well. Does anybody have any questions? I don't know if I can answer. I'm not saying I'm the expert. Gook.
Not so much a question, but when you were speaking to Yandustake, I just only learned recently that that was my grandfather's favorite place to be. And we know why, those of us that live here, because it's just a really that's where the hooligan pits are at. Marsha was speaking to people just coming in over there with their canoes.
Mhm.
And so there's a lot of activity there in the springtime with the onset of the harvest season. So I just wanted to share that part. Geez.
Yeah, having an airport there really changed the terrain. Yeah.
Yeah, they pick the airports and put them where they want, and then the birds have to figure out what else they can do, you know.
Yeah.
And it really affects them. I know we get real concerned about the fish, but there's also the fowl that we used to harvest, you know, it's affecting in a lot of different ways
Mm-hmm.
of the programs and things that they have about how to preserve everything. But yet they don't think about that when they take a large piece of ground and cover it with cement where the ducks used to go and lay their eggs. So it's just, I don't know if the ducks like the sound of planes coming and going. If there's any land left for them to be in.
Yeah.
So
Gunafchish khati ikriyak katsu yihuk yehatuti.
Gonaftusha in Chisati,
Mhm.
Hakulak a Sautuahi.
I just thought of one other dialect that when we're introducing ourselves, and that's what everybody used to say. I used to say wrong. Buneuti ye khatuasau.
Oh,
Uh-huh. That's the way it was up there, but in the Chilcat, but in the Juneau area and on down, it's, I believe people say you. If I'm down there, I would have to say Buneuti you khatuasau.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
and how would
But
you
they're both right.
say it again in your learning?
Buneuti ye khatuasau.
Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely don't want to lose it because but I don't know. I guess to be happy that Tlingit language is moving forward and that people are still working hard at learning it. Yiguayich kwan Sakat Yuhan ya Lingit Yukatangi Stui to Klawasa Achtuulitzin Yaigi Yichatini ya Lingit Yukatangi Kuat Yitatu Yaigi Katsu Stui Stu Al Yik Owa
Ah,
Bunafchish.
Chish. Kunachuish de Bahadati Kunach.
Ah.
Chish Inchisati. This is so good. I took a couple of notes while Benota was sharing, and they're just fun for me to think about some of the sound differences. And
Oh, can I recommend editing?
let me go in edit mode here. Okay, I'm ready.
Yak Yi is Huna and Angun area.
Oh, Chish.
I think it's Yak Yi, but when so the Yagi is the way I grew up
Yeah. I
hearing
think
it.
I used to hear my mother say that too, Yaki.
Yucky, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna switch these. Chish. Oh, this
Oh, Anna,
one.
do we have time to show her our fun cartoon jobs?
Ito agesigu
Galwak? Did she say Galwak? No, cards.
Okay, let's open these.
So do you guys get together every day?
3 times a week.
That's good, Yucky.
Yeah.
Cheese. We'll show you these comics we worked together on.
Which one are you showing?
This is of the man and woman
Hey, Donna, you.
yeah, he says, oops. He's like,
Check die Nacht to pay. I would check die Nacht to pay.
oh, okay. Nach to pay. Ayakakwa?
Check Sani. Ayekakwe. Nacht to pay it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I'm seeing, and Nora and I talked about it, is our second language learners, and don't feel bad, please, is we're forgetting about the possessory of verbs. It's really important. We try to keep that intact, and we talked about it that maybe that's the one main part of the language that's probably going to be one of the first parts to go. But in real Tlingit, the verbs get possessed too. It can happen, you can get almost two possessions happening in one little phrase.
Oh.
Yeah, your nouns get possessed, the verbs get possessed, and the noun possesses the verb, and the verb possesses the noun.
Oh.
So when you listen to speakers, listen for that. I really encourage you, because that's one of the first things that I'm seeing change. So and handling verbs. I believe our people say our language is hard. You have to experience it. So I like TPR because it functions the way I learned, at the elbow of grandpa and grandma and mom and dad. And so I would encourage you, you have to take that learning on yourself. And Nancy is in the class that I'm doing with the families in Haynes. So she's really double timing, and I expect to see wonderful things with Nancy. And she goes in overtime. That's good.
Sheesh.
So handling verbs has a lot. That's where people try to teach. We try to teach classifiers in the classroom, but you have to experience it. That's why there's classifiers. That's how I feel. It's the changing, the feeling, the seeing, the hearing, the motion. It's all. So that's why the TPR functions in that. So maybe Nancy can tell you how I asked them to prepare a bag. And I don't know if you've ever been in any of my classes, Anna, where I had people make a gallon Ziploc bag, put little items in it and handle. Lesson page 60 in the Lingit Class book. I just have them pull things out. I have them put it back into the bag. Take a look at that. Turn it into you can do it in Zoom, but if like the man that is walking around, you must be working and taking class, he would, he probably would have a hard time doing that. So, but I appreciate your guys' dedication. Appointment day gach to art yaida Atlain Gunafchish, Yiguayach Kwanya, Singit Yukatangi, Ayi Ako.
Suye Kwasatin, Sheesh Gunati.
Gunafchish.
Tsiye,
Yexichan.
Goodness, geez.
Sekhan Kuna,
Sheesh.
Sheesh, ha'iti to she.
Anytime.
Yeah, goodness, sheesh.
And what does TPR stand for?
yeah, TPR stands for Total Physical Response. And
Oh,
yeah, does anyone in here want to share what they know about the teaching method TPR?
I heard of it, but
I
because
could
of
look.
can't do it.
Yeah, I'm not
Goodness,
too
geez.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with it either. I know it involves a lot of body movement while you're speaking, kind of associating movements and motions with speech.
Oh, okay. I've heard Renee talk about when there's a high tone that we lift our hand to indicate that our voice goes up. So that kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think it's pretty similar.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Miss
then
Cheese.
I think they
Oh,
incorporate some sign language and stuff like that.
May I
okay.
jump in for a minute?
Yeah.
So TPR is it's the action of language. And so what is commonly expressed when we first begin is that it's the same as being a child birthed into the world, and that's how we learn our world. So through our actions, total physical response. And so if we have TPR, coupled with 100% immersion, then we could really go leaps and bounds. Good Tish.
Oh, you can.
Goodness, Tish.
Thanks for sharing, Skinatla. Well, Ganote had to run, but that was super cool to have her in class, and we can have a discussion next week if you guys like. If you have more questions, we can pass them on to her. Were there any closing thoughts or comments or questions?
I'm glad we showed her that work on the cartoon, because that brought out a thought that she could clarify.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was really good. I learned something by that. It was awesome. Skinyatla?
Yeah, I just wrote something in the comments, but it's wonderful when we have these guest speakers to share with us some of these amazing stories. I mean, I really love that part. Goodness, geez.
It feels like a nice community, and you get to learn a lot from different people. Any other comments or questions, closing thoughts before we break for the day?
That was a wonderful small picture of what it's like to be up there at Deshu, to be around that. I know their famous river. I heard a lot about that.
Okay. I was really madly searching for that verb for yandustaqya, and I'll have to keep searching after class. Defit gunafchish hain gunafchish hati adi yuhan gunafchish yigay janagi. Sige kwasatin.
So yay,
Yes.
Quasatine.
Uh-huh.
Goodness, Tish. Bye for now.
Yeah.
It's Jeez.
Okay.